Welcome to the 2007 edition of Promote the Vote. As I think many of you know, we've been doing this since Mark Warner's race in 2001. And during the whole process, people have asked us, why are we continuing to do this program? And let me give you a couple of examples. And I won't go all the way back to the 2000 election, but let me go back to the 2006 election in Florida and ask you if you recall what happened in the 13th Congressional District, Sarasota. 18,000 votes are not cast in a critical congressional race that the Democrat lost. There are theories why this happened. Some say it was the machines. It is more likely, however, that it was the ballot and our not doing our job. What happened there is the ballot was confusing. The federal races were first, and then you went to the second page, and the congressional race was up in the corner, and then it started with the gubernatorial race, which was in big, bold letters. No one looked at the ballot ahead of time. No one listened to voters. In fact, no one was there helping the voters and helping our candidates win. Think about this for a second. If that had been the vote that would have made the difference in the Congress of the United States. Forward to the next year. In the Jim Webb race, we had problems. But unlike the earlier race, we fixed those problems. We had problems with ballot faces. We had problems with how Jim Webb's name showed up. We solved those problems before the election. And we all know the results. Jim Webb won, Democratic Congress. I will also tell you something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. We also, in that race, had every canvass covered. That is the official count that happens the next day. We came out of that race a winner. Thursday afternoon, we were a winner. And Friday, George Allen, if any of you remember who he was, and if you have to, I don't mean to refresh your recollection, conceded. So what this program is about is two things. One, it is helping voters. That's why we call it Promote the Vote. It's not election protection. It is not about challenges. It's about helping our vote. Second, it is also about solving problems immediately. We have a rule in the Promote the Vote program, and that is every problem from the time it's identified to the time it is solved is 5 minutes. If it takes us 5 minutes with a voter, that's fine. If it takes us 5 minutes to deal with the officer's election, that's fine. If we can't resolve it in that same 5 minutes, we will make a decision as to whether we're going to go to court or not. In that same 5 minutes. The reason, let me ask you, when do you think Al Gore lost the presidency? Choice A, at the Supreme Court. Probably a good answer, but choice A. Choice B, sometime around election night. Choice C, at 7:30 in the morning. West Palm Beach, 6,000 voters voted that day, and no one was there to help them. Now, one of the problems we have is that you simply do not know where these problems arise. If you did, we could put people there and we'd just go home. They arise in all sorts of odd places. And we lose or win elections in all sorts of interesting places. So what we are about tonight, tomorrow, and on election day and on canvass day is making sure that we get every vote we're entitled to and that we don't lose a single vote because no one is there to help the voters. That's the message. That's why it's important to be at your assigned precincts. They are targeted precincts, and there's a reason for that. In those targeted precincts, we have to win. So those precincts will tell us as bellwethers what is going on. Just one person in Palm Beach who had been awake, been through our program, known what we were doing, had said one word. Al Gore would be president, we wouldn't have all the problems we have today. That one word was Kinko's. Had we gone to Kinko's at 7 o'clock in the morning, made sample ballots, been back on the street at 7:15, Al Gore would be president. Fortunately, Jim Webb is our senator. Mark Warner was our governor. Tim Kaine is our governor. And if we do this right, we will have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House. Tim Kaine will now be able to govern fully, fairly, and just maybe, Northern Virginia will get a fair break. Without that, I will tell you, not only will Northern Virginia not get a fair break, but Tidewater won't get a fair break. Richmond won't get a fair break. Southside won't get a fair break. Charlottesville, Albemarle, the Ninth, the Valley, no one will get a fair break if we continue the policies of this General Assembly. What I'd like to do is introduce you to Jay Meyerson, who's the General Counsel of the Democratic Party of Virginia, who will go through what this program is about. We will then take a look at some quick scenarios about how things will happen in the polling place. And then last, Seth will walk you through what you as a poll worker and as attorney need to know. If you have questions, ask them. We'll make sure you get the mic. We'll make sure you get on tape. So don't feel embarrassed to ask questions after Jay Meyerson finishes. Jay.
Thank you, Jack. I guess at this point I'd ask you to turn off your cell phones. As Jack said, I'm General Counsel, Democratic Party of Virginia. Some of you have had the misfortune of having to listen to me before. Others of you get that unique displeasure this evening. I want to underscore the importance of this program. As Jack indicated, we began it in 2001. You don't have to go look into Florida in 2006. You can look at how the program worked here on Election Day in 2005. 2005, we had the program in place. We had people in critical key precincts identified for us by the state party, and we had our boiler rooms in various parts of the Commonwealth with a centralized primary boiler room up here. 2005, a little bit before 10 o'clock, we get a phone call. We have a problem. A voter reports in one of the precincts outside Roanoke that she went in and she voted and pushed the button for Tim Kaine. That's what we want. We thought, where's the problem there? She then went through, selected the other Democratic candidates, got to the end where you have to hit the final button saying vote, and just before she hit that button, it came up with a summary. And the summary said that she voted for Jerry Kilgore. Thank you. A few more boos, please. She tried again. Same unfortunate result. Somewhere around the fourth time, it got it right, and she cast her vote. And she came outside, and she alerted our precinct person who was in that precinct to the problem. The precinct person immediately called it into the boiler room. The boiler room said, this is interesting. Maybe we have one individual having difficulties, or maybe we have a problem. Let's assume we have a problem. Our precinct worker was instructed to go inside, alert the campaign officers as to that machine. While our person was inside, happened to a second person. Okay? That gets reported to us. We now think we don't have an isolated episode and we don't have just one machine with a problem. Unlike West Palm Beach, we contacted the local party, said we need you to get information and additional volunteers to a number of your precincts. Okay, we're going to assume it's a widespread problem in Roanoke. We don't know why it's happening, but we know it's happening. We got the people out there. As individuals are going in to vote, they were reminded to check the final vote summary before hitting the final vote button so that the voters were aware of the problem. Additional ones came out and said, thank you for alerting me to the problem. I had it too, and I was looking for it. Well, that's all well and good. We solved that problem fairly quickly, but it turned out that it wasn't just that one little precinct in Roanoke. We had this complaint from multiple precincts in multiple counties around the Commonwealth. Having solved the problem in Roanoke, we had the solutions for the other jurisdictions as well. Okay?
What was causing that problem?
A miscalibration of the machine.
Well, why wasn't the judge of the election intercepted saying, you've got defective machines here?
They were alerted. You alert people to the problem. We alerted the officers of election to the problem, but it didn't happen to everyone using the machine.
Because of the geometry of the touchscreen.
That is correct.
With the upper right-hand corner.
And if you take the machine down completely, you're going to cause other problems.
And with the kill more buttons like that too?
Yes. We found out after the election that the Republicans were experiencing the same problem, but they did not respond in a similar manner.
In a case like
I'm going to need, for purposes of what we're doing right now, I need to quickly run through my part of it. You'll see the vignettes, which hopefully will make additional points clear. Seth will give you a more in-depth briefing, and then we'll respond to additional questions as they come. Otherwise, we'll be here well past the time they're going to kick us out. All right? We are modeling our program this year based on our prior years of experience. We will have a statewide boiler room up here at the FCDC. It will be manned by approximately 10 attorneys. We will be maintaining incident reports. We've come up with a new improved tracking system for the incident reports so that next year when you go to your precinct, you'll have the benefit of all the information from the earlier years. Right? All calls will be coming into the FCDC to report problems as they're being experienced and for us to provide solutions or to adapt to the solutions that you develop in the field. We will be having attorneys and members of the program, of the legal committee, in certain precincts that have been identified for us by the party. These are precincts that they're concerned may have difficulties, may have, from prior experience, reasons for us to be concerned. All right? So those are our first tier triage targets. Additionally, we're going to be placing flow over people in other precincts so that we will be able to respond if there are problems occurring in those jurisdictions. Those of you who are not attorneys, but who are working outside the polls for other purposes, you are additional eyes and ears for the program. If you see a problem, we'll need for you to report it in. On top of the attorneys and the legal team in the field, on top of the boiler room, we will be having litigation teams in different key points of the Commonwealth. Fred Middleton's going to be running the team up here. It will be directly across the street from the Fairfax County Circuit Court. We already have pleadings ready to go and ready to be adapted. We'll have a team also in Richmond. We will be having an attorney spending the entire day with the Secretary of the State Board of Elections so that, again, if problems come up, we can get a swift and prompt response. The key to making the entire program work, as Jack had indicated, solving the problems within 5 minutes. That way, voters' problems are addressed before they go home and before we lose their vote. You all are the critical linchpin holding all this together. We discover the problems at the grassroots. We ultimately solve them through communications at the grassroots. We thank you for your participation, and we look forward to working with you. Our next speaker will be Seth Go to the video.
The 5 most common problems voters encounter at the polls are ID problems, poll list problems, address problems, challenges, and machine malfunctions or insufficient ballots. In every situation, there are some basic approaches you should follow to resolve the problem quickly and efficiently. The goal overall is to solve the problem quickly, make sure that the voter can vote, and keep the line moving and the polling place running smoothly so all other voters are able to vote. And as problems arise, follow these steps. Identify the problem. Find out what is going on by consulting with local election officials. Formulate the solution. You have an understanding of the basic rules of your state and will have with you materials with helpful information on the law and common problems. Most of the time, this is all you need, but you will also have with you the telephone numbers of campaign headquarters or lead attorneys to call for help and advice if you need it. Communicate clearly and constructively with poll officials. In most situations, poll officials will work with you to correct any problems. Call in as necessary for additional assistance. You will have with you the numbers to report problems and seek additional assistance. Do not hesitate to use them. Even if you don't need assistance with a particular situation, You need to report in after the issue has been resolved so a comprehensive record can be maintained. Voter denied right to vote because of lack of ID.
Thanks for voting. Did everything go okay?
No, they said I needed 2 forms of photo IDs to vote.
I'm sorry to hear that, because that's not true. My name is Jack Jones. I'm an attorney with the Democratic legal team, and I'm here to make sure that voters at the polls know their rights.
Great. Why do I need 2 forms of IDs to vote?
Actually, you don't. You only need one form of ID, such as a voter registration card, a social security card, or a driver's license. In fact, even an employer-issued photo ID is sufficient.
Some states require that voters present identification before they vote, but almost all of these states allow voters to cast some kind of ballot even if they do not have appropriate identification.
It's still a problem. I lost my wallet and don't have any ID with me. Is there any way I can vote today?
Yes, there is.
Usually, voters are required to complete an affidavit of some kind before voting in this manner. In these situations, it is important to make sure that poll officials do not require more or a different kind of ID than is legally required. If a voter does not have sufficient ID, the voter is still able to vote in the manner required by law.
I voted.
Great.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Voter not on the roll of registered voters.
Thanks for voting. Did everything go okay?
No, they said I was not allowed to vote.
Oh, that's unfortunate. My name is Paul Johnson, and I'm a member of the Democratic legal team.
Remember, if the voter's name does not appear on the poll list, the new federal law requires that they be provided a provisional ballot.
Well, you have the right to cast a provisional ballot, and here's how that works. A
The
provisional
problem is different if the voter has appeared in the wrong precinct. In some states, the voter will still be entitled to a provisional ballot, while in others, the voter will be entitled to information about the location of the correct polling location. Poll officials should be advised respectfully of the rights of the voter, including a provisional ballot. Inactive voter.
Hola, gracias por votar. ¿Le fue todo bien?
Pues no me dejaron votar.
¿Y eso?
Pues dicen que no estoy en las listas, que no aparezco. Pero yo sé que voté aquí.
You may also encounter a situation in which a voter has an inactive designation next to his or her name, and poll officials are not allowing the voter to vote. Inactive usually refers to the voter who has not responded to a mail-in or has not voted for a certain period of time. This type of voter must be allowed to vote after affirming their address. When this problem arises, notify the poll official that the law requires the voter be permitted to vote. Challenge voter.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Mario Cruz.
Most states allow poll watchers, voters, or poll officials to challenge a voter's qualifications if they doubt the voter is eligible to
Are
vote.
you a newly registered voter?
Yes, I just became a U.S. citizen and I registered by mail.
Sometimes Republican poll watchers
Here's
are
my
overly
license.
aggressive in their challenges.
I want to challenge this. I don't buy it. He's not a voter.
That's an impermissible challenge under state law. He's met all the requirements of the law, and if he weren't a new voter, he wouldn't even have to show ID. He could just sign an affidavit.
Let him show some citizenship papers. This guy's not a real voter. He's a fraud. He's not even. How do we even know he's a U.S. citizen?
By challenging only Democratic voters or voters of a certain racial profile.
No, there's no way. I'm not going to back down on this challenge. He shouldn't be allowed to vote. He's not even a U.S. citizen.
Sir, if you continue to disrupt the polling place, I'm going to have you removed under state law.
I'm not backing down. This guy should not be allowed to vote. It's illegal. He's not a U.S. citizen.
I'm sorry for the delay, but thank you so much for your patience. Why don't you head over to the available voting booth?
Thank you.
It is critical
Oh,
that you
tell that
report
lawyer,
all
thank you
such
very
challenges to campaign headquarters or to the lead attorney.
I got a call from the state registrar's office. I have to ask you to leave.
Machine malfunctions or insufficient ballots.
Received a complaint for machine being broken down and paper ballots being used. The machine is not working. However, upon inspection, I find that there's no watcher. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to make a telephone call to headquarters to make sure we have our watcher there observing the process.
Most states require poll officials to provide substitute ballots to voters when machines have failed or create an unofficial ballot if official ballots run out. Poll officials should allow voters to vote through some alternative means. Systematic problems like this should be immediately reported.
Thank you. What we're going to do now for the rest of the evening is talk specifically about what your responsibility as a poll worker and as a lawyer for the Promote the Vote effort is. And for that, I want to turn everything over to Seth, who is not only someone who's been working a long time in this field, but someone who's spent a lot of time thinking about how the poll worker process works. Seth?
Go ahead. We have a question.
Who is there? Who represents the various, maybe you touch on this, who represents various aspects of Virginia government, what your role is, and what you're permitted to do and interact with various people. I can't help but solving the problem unless I understand the structure of what precedes it.
Well, a lot of that's in the materials that are on the table. I'm going to try to stick with the highlights and not get into a lot of the minutiae and the detail of election law. But basically, the way it works is that you will have somebody at designated precincts that are going to be part of the Democratic Promote the Vote, the legal team. Okay? Then you will have inside the polls, you're allowed one person from each party during the course of the day, two from each party in order to, when the counts come on, to count the results. And then you have people outside the polls that will be passing out materials and that type of thing. Now, inside the polls, you're not allowed to electioneer. You can't be there and say, vote for George Barker, vote for Rex Simmons, et cetera, et cetera. You're supposed to be there as an unofficial observer for the party. You cannot wear any political paraphernalia. You cannot do anything that's going to interfere with the electoral process. If you are outside the polls, you can, short of intimidating anybody and interfering with their right to vote, you can go and promote your party's agenda. Okay, so that's the basic parameter. Okay, a couple things I want to embellish with Jack and Jay before I get into specifics of what everybody is supposed to do. Promote the Vote is about that everybody that is entitled to vote, who shows up to vote, gets to vote. Okay, that's what we're about. If you look at the old adage used to be in America that, what's my vote? It doesn't count. I'm one out of X thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people voting. Creed Eads lost to Bob McDonnell by 320 some odd votes. I forget the exact number. 7. In the over 2 million votes cast in the 2006 Senate race between Webb and Allen, the margin was 9,300 votes, which is less than 0.5%. And you're looking in this race, you're looking at a low turnout because there's not a lot of, quote, sexy races out there. So every single vote counts. So this program was designed to ensure that people that want to vote and are entitled to vote, vote. The protocol for PTV is very simple. It's a lot simpler than what you saw on that video. The concept is as follows. If there is a lawyer, if an incident arises, and there is a lawyer that is assigned to your particular precinct, you are to, and we'll get into issue spotting because that's really what I'm going to talk about a lot of it. You are to find the lawyer and let the lawyer handle it, okay? Unfortunately, just because due to man, women power, body power, etc., there's going to be lots of precincts throughout the state where we're not going to be able to actually place a lawyer. So, what we want you to do is, if you feel that you can diffuse the situation and handle it comfortably within a very short period of time, so not as to violate the 5-minute rule, which is paramount to the whole process, then we want you to try to diffuse it. If, for any reason, we don't want cowboys and cowgirls out there, we don't want heroes, we want you to be prudent and use your wits and be Johnny on the spot. If there is something that you either don't feel comfortable handling, do not feel that you can diffuse it within a period of time that enables, so that you don't violate the 5-minute rule, you are to call it in to our boiler room. Okay, and I've got a set of handouts which includes the boiler room number. So it's a very, very, very simple process. When in doubt, we want you to call it in. That's why we got 14 people. Gail.
Can I say one thing about the boiler room? In the manual, the Promote the Vote Attorney Manual, this page that I've been handing out to everybody, the phone number is in Richmond. We don't want you to call Richmond. We want you to hand it out and call this phone number.
What is the phone number?
It's
the second.
5736811.
Yeah, I was going to get into that when I got into the handout.
It is in the menu.
All right, a very important point that Jay just brought up, and he's right, is you got to be careful when you're trying to diffuse a situation, because if you are not a Virginia attorney, you are not allowed to practice law in Virginia. Okay? So if it's something that's simple, that doesn't get into giving legal advice, will allow you, everybody's going to use their own better judgment. But we really want everybody to err on the side of phoning it in. That's why we got 14 people working in a boiler room. We're going to be there from 5:30 in the morning till probably midnight, because we've got to get ready for the canvass the next day, and we want to make sure all the counts are done correctly that night. So please don't hesitate to phone it in. Okay, is that clear to everybody? You go to the lawyer first. The lawyer's not there. You got a minute or two to decide, to think on your feet and say, okay, either this is something I feel comfortable handling and I can handle, and I'm not going to practice law by handling, or I'm going to phone it in. And we're really relying on, I'll get you in a second, we're really relying on, it's like Jack and Jay said, we're relying on you because you guys are our eyes and ears on the ground. We want to know immediately if there's any problems. For those of you that are inside the polls, if there is issues with election officials, machines break down, anything like that, please call it in. For people outside the polls and also people inside the polls, I'm going to highlight in a couple of minutes various issues that you can spot, just to make sure that if you know when you see something that doesn't look right to you. You had a question?
Yeah, what is the responsibility of the election officer inside the polls? Because each poll place has both Republican and Democratic election officers, isn't that right? And when we interact with them, who would take the first action? Would it be us as poll watchers, or?
Well, you'd bring it, if you have an issue, you bring it to the attention of the election official, and then you see how the election official handles it. If you feel like the election official is not handling it properly, or you have concerns about it, you phone it in and you let us do it. Because remember, we have access to we can get to the election official in that particular precinct. Plus, we can go all the way up. We have somebody sitting there at the state board with the registrar of elections for the entire state. Are we having somebody near Charlottesville?
We will be, Charlottesville is not,
Hang on, we have to pass this mic so that the video picks this up.
this is for the benefit of the video. Charlottesville, in terms of targeted precincts, is not on the targeted list this year. We will be having individuals in Charlottesville with whom we can coordinate.
Yeah, for those targeted precincts outside of it, but not far.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Ma'am. When you call the boiler room, you just say, I'm Jane Doe calling from this precinct. This is my issue. Just say it as succinctly as you can. And you'll see as part of this package, when I'm going to go through in a minute, every single incident that you guys report needs to be reported also on an incident form that gets faxed to us by the end of the day. We will be taking down the incident reports as well. That's a critical part of what we do, because it all gets fed together throughout the state, and then that way, if there's patterns, we can spot them. So it's simple. All you do is you say, I'm calling from this precinct, this is my issue, and we'll help you read it.
So there's a Democratic and a Republican official inside the polling?
No, there's just one election official.
There's one election.
There's various election officials, but there's a hierarchy. There's a chief election official that has the responsibility of determining who the voting machine people and everybody that's under them that determines, ultimately is the arbitrator.
Do they make a decision at that point if there's a problem?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Unless they feel it's outside of their purview, and then they give it to somebody else. Jen. Yeah, sure.
The chief election official is a Democrat because we have a Democratic governor. However, they're wrong.
Okay, one point I do want to underscore, because of time constraints, as well as trying to make sure that what we are videotaping has a good flow for those who are going to be watching it online over the coming days, I'm going to ask that we hold most of the questions until the end. Every point that's been inquired about so far is part of Seth's planned presentation. I know everyone's anxious, everyone's an activist, everyone wants to do the right thing and do the best job possible. All I do is ask that you be patient. Seth will cover it. If he doesn't at the end, there will be an adequate opportunity for questions.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take 5 minutes at the end, and then we'll ask questions. And then I'll stick around, so if anybody has questions beyond that, let me know. Go ahead. Well, then you just follow what the election official is supposed to follow what the guidelines are for absentee voting. Now, what I did is I left everybody, and I'm going to repeat this for the video because my card is here. My phone number is at work is 301-468-0700. My card is on the table. My email address is stark, S-T-A-R-K, at starkmeyers, M-E-Y-E-R-S.com. So if anybody has issues that come up prior to the election or absentee or whatever it is, because there's another week from today till we get to the election, please feel free to call or email me. 301-468-0700, or you can use my cell phone, 703-655-3111. Okay? So if you get somebody else that gets to an absentee poll and they have an issue, feel free to call me, because I have the responsibility. I'm the Assistant General Counsel to the State Party for Corporate Affairs, and Fairfax is my domain. So anybody that has issues with the electoral process in Fairfax needs to come through me. Okay? All right, to the package. Okay. My package, which I left for the poll workers primarily, there's two packages on the table. There's the poll workers package and there's the PTV election manual. Okay, this 2007 manual. My presentation is going, because this is going out on the internet, is going to be geared towards the poll workers. If there's issues that intertwine with the lawyers, that's fine. We can discuss those as well. All right, in the package, very quickly, the first thing I put is all poll workers, make sure you have written authorization signed by, and in Fairfax, it's Ginny Peters, who's sitting in the second row tonight, by chairperson of the FCDC. Throughout the state, you guys will not be allowed into the polls. For you people sitting inside the polls, you need a written authorization. So in the poll worker packets, which I think, Ginny, are ready and are going out, they're out already. They're available at various campaign headquarters. I don't know what it's like for everybody else for the rest of the state. District chairs, the first thing you need in your poll workers packet is you need a written authorization from your county chair. Otherwise, they will not let you inside the polls. Paper number 2 in this package is the boiler room phone number. This phone number works throughout the state of Virginia. So for purposes of the tape and for purposes of the people in the room, it is 703-573-6811. I repeat, 703-573-6811. We will have 14 lines going in this boiler room. We'll be at FCDC headquarters. The phones will roll over. We have all kind of additional phone lines available to us, and we will make sure that we answer every single incident that gets reported to us. Okay, from 5:30 in the morning until we know that all the counts are in and that we can go home for the night. Okay, 703-573-6811. This number is good throughout the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. All right, paper number 3. I gave everybody a poll worker incident report as well as a minority voter intimidation report. If there are any incidents whatsoever, you guys are to, whether you attempt to defuse them yourself and or defuse them, even if you defuse it, or you phone it into the boiler room, they get reported to us, and I put the fax number of FCDC on the top. Okay, you don't have to leave what you're doing and immediately go fax it in, provided that hopefully you've called it in. You need to call it in. But we need to get these reports because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, when all the reports are compiled throughout the state, that we have a list of every single incident that's come across. Okay, so that's very, very important. Even if it's something innocuous that you think it takes you 10 seconds to diffuse it, somebody, I don't know what a good example is, but something very minor that you immediately, some election official makes a mistake, somebody's got the wrong, they said they don't have proper ID, it's proper ID, it gets done like that. Please report it, because there's no, information is power, and the more information we have, the better it is. Okay, same thing with this minority voter intimidation report form. If for some reason, any minority voters in the state, if anybody sees any sort of intimidation that's going on, or any sort of effort to block minorities from voting, we need to know about it immediately, and it needs to get reported immediately. Okay? Something that has come up this year, I'm going to just touch on briefly, is, I don't know if you've heard about this, is a process called caging. And caging is where a group, using direct mail or other means, attempts to create a reason to challenge a voter at the polls. Okay, so sometimes what's happened is, and if those of you that read the Washington Post today, that you will see an article that Jean Marie Devilloy Davis, who was running for state re-election against Chap Peterson, sent communications out, and I don't remember now if they were written or telephonic or whatever. What was it, Jane? I'm sorry, what? Door hangers, that's right, door hangers that are poll workers putting up, saying that the election was on Sunday. And then, when asked about it, she and her husband Tom Davis, who was the congressman from the 11th district in our area, said, oh, well, everybody knows that the election's not on Sunday, the election's on Tuesday. They claimed it wasn't calculated, it was just a mistake, and let bygones be bygones. Now, not knowing what the intent was, that's what caging is about. If you saw in the video where there was a challenge in one of those vignettes, they've changed the law now, so if somebody gets challenged at the polls, the person challenging it, whether it be whoever it is, a Republican there or whoever it may be, has to fill out, and this is all in your written materials, a written statement which is pretty detailed as to why they're challenging, and also the person voting needs to file a statement as well. If you get into one of these challenges at the polls, my suggestion is you phone it in immediately. I'm not sure in this part of the state we're going to see a lot of it. It's possible in other parts of the state that we will, okay? But be aware of this, because this has become a hotbed issue that's arisen over the last several months. Yes, I took this, most of what I have in the poll workers I extracted from the lawyers. What I didn't do in the poll workers is I didn't put, we have all of the important sections of the Virginia Election Code and that type of thing I did not put in the poll workers. But you will have this, it is part of the manual, and please be aware of it. And remember, under the new law, if somebody challenges at the poll, like you saw in the vignette, they have to fill out a written statement, and also the person that's voting needs to fill out a written statement as well. Okay. Know your rights to vote in Virginia. I just want to touch on this briefly. This is just the hot points. If you are registered to vote in Virginia, you can vote. If you do not have an identification with you, you can vote. You have the right to vote after signing an affirmation form that says you're registered to vote in that precinct. Acceptable ID is a voter registration card, a driver's license, social security card, U.S. government agency card, or private employer picture ID. If the record's showing correctly that you moved, or say when you vote that you voted and you haven't, you have the right to vote by signing an affirmation. We want you to try, you have to understand the difference between voting by provisional and affirmation. We want you to vote by affirmation. If they have to vote by provisional, and there's no other choice, we'll take it vote by provisional, because what happens when you vote provisionally is the next day when the canvass occurs and the state board goes and the local registrar goes to certify the election results, all the provisional ballots have to be adjudicated by the registrar. So you'll see in the materials the differentiation between affirmation and provisional, but remember, because we don't have enough time to really hit every single point of election law, we want, in doubt, vote by affirmation, not by provisional ballot. Okay. If somebody's in line and it's 7 o'clock or 5 to 7, they have the right to vote. If you make a mistake, if somebody makes a mistake, and it's an older person, a handicapped person, They have the right to go to the election official on site and say, I want to get a replacement ballot. They're legally entitled to that. If you are a senior citizen or you are physically disabled, there is a procedure where they can find the election official and they will move the machine to, I think it's 150 feet by the polling place so that the disabled or physically handicapped person does not have to go in. If you get that situation, if this is going to be the outside poll workers that are going to need to spot that. They have the right to vote. Just make sure that you find or they find the election official. Hopefully they have a family member with them to help them, and then that will be taken care of so their vote gets counted. You're allowed to receive a sample ballot, which everybody will have, and you may not be harassed by voting. One of what you guys need to be doing, both the inside and the outside poll workers is, and also, of course, the lawyers, is you guys are there to issue spot. So I'm giving you situations with voter identification, things like that, where you see issues. Just keep your wits about you. If you're inside, you got machine issues, you've got something happens on the register that doesn't look right, report it. Diffuse it or report it. Chances are you're going to report it. If you're on the outside, keep an eye out for any kind of voter intimidation. Republicans are not allowed to do anything that's good. The legal standard is you cannot do anything that's going to interfere or impede with the person's right to vote. So if you think that you have, and this is the bulk of the calls that we get, believe it or not, are not about machines that break down, because the electronic system on the whole, even though it's very controversial, on the whole it works pretty well. The reason that Allen wasn't able to make up 9,300 votes with Webb was because an electronic system, unless there's something that's really out of whack, that's a lot of votes to make up, and that's why Allen conceded it one day after the election or 2 days and didn't litigate it, which we thought he would do. I lost my train of thought. But that's what you got to be aware of. That's what you got to be looking out for. Anything that doesn't look 100% kosher to you, deal with it. If you can't deal with it right away, phone it in, and we'll make sure that it's taken care of. Okay. Okay. I put in a section here basically in questions and answers and procedures on election day, vis-a-vis election day procedures. Basically, polls open at 6. If you're opening up the polls, you want to be there about 5:15. We tell the poll workers, both the inside and the out, as well as the lawyers, get there early, introduce yourself to the election officials. We're there as your advocates, but you're also there to promote the vote, and make it collegial. Introduce yourself even to the Republicans, offer to buy them a donut, whatever it may be, because I found, and maybe you found it too, and when I was working in the field, it really helps. I mean, if you can sort of diffuse a lot of the tension from the beginning. And remember, you're going to be stuck with these people for 13, 14, 15, 16 hours. And it's a lot better in terms of everybody's working relationship, and should an incident arise, to kind of get to know everybody, make it so that it's more collegial and less confrontational. Now, if it happens to get confrontational, it happens to get confrontational. But on the whole, it's not going to, and everybody's going to be relatively collegial. Go ahead. One of the lawyers, and Bob Pearson, who's in my Springfield district, the lawyer is recommending donuts, and Bob Pearson is recommending coffee. So maybe coffee and donuts is a combination. Help keep things diffused and in good shape. When you're opening and closing the polls, just be aware of the machine counts, both at the beginning and the end. If anything doesn't look right to you, make sure you call us. Okay, we'll be on from 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. We're getting there, Bob.
Real quick, in the opening, if the poll worker gets there a little late and the officials have already got the machine set up and they certify the zero registered, do they have the right to ask to see the machines after that, or do they have to take the
No.
word of the judge?
No, you have to get there on time.
You have to just witness.
Right.
You don't have the right to go wandering back there.
Right. You have to get there on time. Okay, so that means 5:15, I think, is when you want everybody there.
And so now you mentioned the important things that everyone must bring if you come at 5:15. Do we cover that?
Go ahead.
Okay. Really critical. Take this down. Keep this in mind. When you show up at 5:15, you're going to be dealing with poll workers who are, on average, about 72 years of age, who got up typically at about 4 in the morning and are way out of their normal activity. Best thing to do, highly recommended, show up with a bag of bagels or a box of donuts. These people are friends, okay?
Right, absolutely. That's what I was saying about the, I thought you were going to say something else, about the collegial nature of it. Also included, so that's basically the polls. Again, any issues, if it doesn't look right to you, call it in, okay? Machines, counts, the Republicans try to pull something that doesn't sit right with you. If you can't get the election officials' attention or you're not sure, please phone it in, because that's the one that's fraught with peril, because we have to make sure that the votes are accurately counted, okay? What else do I have? Okay, I put in for you, because we're running out of time. I put in, and this is a big part of the election, of the promote the vote, the lawyer manual, but I put in for the poll workers too. I think the state actually prepared this what-if guide.
The what-if guide that's included in your package materials we found extremely helpful. It is prepared by the State Board of Elections. You're working off the same materials that the election officials will be working off of. So you can go in, you can say, wait a minute, under the what-if, voter has ID includes special ID requirements for federal elections, all right? You know what the problem is, you have the solution, you're all working off the same page. Should make your life much, much easier. Also, one point that I really want to underscore, Election Day, bottom line, is fun, okay? Don't lose sight of that fact. It is the best day of the year for each of us who are in this room. Let's face it. It's better than Hanukkah, it's better than Christmas, it's better than our birthday, and you get to do it all day, and you're out of your normal routine. So keep that in mind. This is a fun experience.
It really is, and it really is, and it seems like it'd be so tedious to get up at 5 in the morning, work 13, 14 hours, hopefully go to some nice victory parties that night, but it is just the most wonderful thing, and you meet so many good people, and and you really feel like you're contributing to a worthy and noble cause, because you're helping to make sure that Democrats get elected. Real quick, because we're running out of time, because we have a window for the video. I also put in here, which just came out tonight, I put a copy on the table. Everybody should look at this. We will have what we call the 1, 2, 3 cards, which will be grip cards that the poll workers should have outside. It's going to basically walk everybody through exactly what you need to get this to all the voters. This is as important as the sample ballots, exactly what they need to do with the machines, because there are people in the computer age that don't have a lot of experience with computers, and this will show them 1, 2, 3 exactly what to do in order to make sure that they get their vote done and counted. Also, encourage your people when you're outside the poll, because inside poll workers can't do this, make sure everybody knows to vote down ticket, okay? The sexy races this year are the state senate, the Jean Marie and Chap, depending on what your district is, Barker and Jay O'Brien, Cuccinelli and Janet, Simmons and Hugo. There's going to be a lot of races. But going all the way down the ticket, there's Jerry Conley in our district, Springfield. Mike McClanahan is in a really contested race against Pat Harity. There's school board people, there's soil and conservation people. You want the Democratic voters to vote Democratic straight through, okay? And what the campaigns are predicting that you lose 8 to 10%, depending on what level of the ballot you're on the down ticket. So the down ticket is important to emphasize to everybody. Just real briefly, even though you're so exhausted and the election night comes and hopefully we'll have this high that we'll get the Senate and make a dent in the House, maybe even win the House, the role of the state legal team and also of the active people in the counties are not done. There is a canvass that happens whereby in each county the registrar needs to certify the results of the election. And the canvass, as Jack mentioned in his talk, who was ably helped by Eileen Manning, who's sitting in the back row, we had it basically in almost every precinct in the state with Webb. We had the canvass covered. So I would encourage you, Fairfax and Prince William are pretty much booked, but there's canvasses that are going to be out throughout the state. People that are looking at this video, please get with your county chair, because that's who Eileen's going to contact, and make sure that we have the canvas covered to, so that we know that all the votes are accurately counted and that it's a viable election. Cree Deeds got into some trouble with that, without going into a lot of detail, but the canvas is extremely, extremely important. And though everybody is so exhausted because of the election and the night and the revelry and everything else, we need to make sure that we cover the canvas. In the lawyer's manual, I didn't put it in the poll worker's manual, but in the lawyer's manual, there is a large section on the canvas, so we need to make sure that's covered. I'll take questions in a sec. To conclude, you guys are the eyes and ears on the ground. The process really does work. I can take no credit in developing this process. These two gentlemen that are sitting here, Jay Myerson and Jack Young, are two of the best election lawyers in the country. They are really top-notch. This is their program. They have done, it is one of the leading programs, if not a prototype, that's going to be enacted throughout the country, and the system works. If you follow the rules, you follow what we're telling you to do, we're going to have a very successful election.
Seth, first of all, thank you very much. We appreciate very hard work. Don't let him fool you. He's put in tremendous time and tremendous energy in this program and is volunteered to go all around the Commonwealth with it. And in fact, I think you're actually going over into the district on Saturday. That's right. And I just want you to thank also, we have a number of people who have been very, very critical to this program. Eileen Manning in the back is the director of the program statewide, the coordinator. Gail Rubin I don't see Gail, she was here before, been tremendously helpful with the program. We have co-chairs with us as well. Seth is one of the co-chairs of the program. Jennifer Harper is another. Rita Aguilar, who's hiding somewhere in the back, is another coming in. Zach Myers is an additional co-chair of the program and is coordinating for us all of the law schools in D.C.
Do we have time to take questions on tape? Do you want to take the question? All right, let's take, go ahead.